but I wanted to kind of walk through this. For this case, we're going to be doing a customer who is a financial customer who's concerned about churn and retention of their customers. And they got some data and they have things that they see in the data that they feel like, is kind of helping explain that, but we're going to help them pull together a visualization that would help get them to be able to do something with that. And I'm going to stop sharing very briefly. And well, to help me with this, I've got Jeff Musselman, who is also on here. Jeff works on our team as a developer, a designer, a analyst. I don't know what all you do, Jeff, but and a little bit of everything every day. So Jeff has been with us when we've worked on these types of things. So I wanted to have him kind of be in this place. He's going to play the customer. He will be kind of an investment manager for us, and then and I'll play kind of the interviewee. And just 1 second. Okay. So again, just a mock interview to kind of show you how this would go. Really informal, but I'll try to make some points throughout this to kind of help, emphasize some things, at least what we'd be thinking through. So to kind of kick this off, I'll start questioning Jeff. Now, he gave me a data set ahead of time on this. And again, just a note saying we just need to be able to visualize this in a way that's going to help us with churn. So we'll start the interview. Jeff, hey, great getting to spend some time with you. I appreciate your time that you've already spent in sending me data and stuff. I just wanted to understand a little bit more before we kind of get into visualizing this. So tell me what you're wanting to show with this data. What are your thoughts on what you want to show? And I've looked at it a little bit ahead of time, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Sure, Tim. So, my role as a financial services advisor manager, I'm primarily concerned about customer churn and, losing customers out to other firms. Primarily, we want to better understand which of our clients have the highest probability of leaving, based upon the historical data. And there's, certain trends in the data we've noticed that are indicators of this. And we'll basically just want to know, who to focus our efforts on to hopefully diminish or just prevent churn.
Perfect. So, no, I completely understand that. We've worked with a number of clients in that. So, I certainly have some of my deals already, but to kind of get beyond that, I want to understand for you, why is churn itself important for you and for your users? What makes that, something that we want to be able to drive some visualizations for?
Well, we invest a lot of time and money into bringing them on, and ultimately we just don't want to lose the revenue we get from them. If we need to invest more time and money to ensure that we're keeping them, we need to understand precisely where it is that we need to invest.
Okay, perfect. And so, and just as an aside from the interview, as you can see, here when we're doing this, it's usually on a piece of paper or something like for me. But I'm kind of scratching notes out, and I'm not just doing that because I have a bad memory, which I do, but I'm also doing that because I'm looking for things that the interview is saying. And as we go through this, I'm going to see things that he may actually say visually that help me honestly get to my final answer. So time and money, for instance, are things that he's going to be concerned with. Probability of leaving. So churn probability is kind of what typically that turns into. So certain things like that. So sorry, step back in character. So definitely understand that. From your knowledge of the data that you sent me, again, I was able to kind of play with it in our tool and got some things myself, but I want to know from you, from just your general knowledge of the data, the business you guys have, what do you think are some of the factors, dimensions of your business that would typically cause someone to want to leave or to increase their probability of churn?
Well, by itself, I think we've found that age is oftentimes has the greatest effect on the amount of churn, specifically with our middle-aged customer base, people around, 40 or 60. We've also seen that, certain actions our own advisors take can often help to reduce the overall churn if it's done, with the right clients.
Right.
So we'd like to show the overlap between the two, and, customers with multiple touches like, email or phone or social media, those all have a big impact on churn. And I guess we also noticed that clients with, multiple relationships, say loans and insurance, with us, those also had a pretty big impact on churn as well. So and then not surprisingly, individual portfolio performance plays a big role as well.
Okay, Perfect. Yeah, and again, those are some of the things that we've seen as well too. And again, I'm still making notes on things, and apologize for everybody who's having to watch me scribble on this screen. My handwriting isn't much better on paper either, but it gets even worse on the screen. But again, I've just taken notes on things that I feel like we can actually use this to kind of take something with. So as we're talking and looking at this, I want to start taking my first ideals and kind of switch off that and start actually putting some things down. So, one of the first things I heard was, the ability to be able to show the probability of churn versus, age. So when we look at that, for me, you're showing two things on an axis. You're showing age on one axis. You're showing, probability of churn. And I will not spell that out. One thing I will say again, just kind of a side note for design, I'm not doing that now for the sake of time, but titles for these things, which we're not doing because we're not in design, is very important though. So as you get into digging these, make sure that you put titles text, because it's just a proven fact that people's eyes will go to the text before they'll even go to the visualization to see what they're looking at to decide if it's even worth looking at. So we're going to see age of 30, 40, 50. We'll kind of put those out there. And so I'm looking at saying that, you're, at least from your J, and we'll have to kind of prove this with data, is that you're getting more churn kind of in this middle area. So that's interesting. Certainly what we want to look at. Maybe this is something because you also mentioned that the amount of touches that you have with the client will also affect it as well. We could do another chart with that, but I think it would be also interesting to see, see that stacked up. So maybe by age, the amount of touches that we have with someone makes a difference in that. And we can see trends if we start combining those two. So, maybe email touches versus text touches or whatever. How many other times we've talked to the people, we can start stacking those in. I really think, because some people, especially when you get on up in age, maybe, and all that's changing, but, some of them don't like to get as many touches, or especially if it's their email or something like that. So I'd be interested to see how that stacks up. So there's another thing interesting that we can do. I also heard a few things that we wanted to kind of compare. And something I think we'd be interested in is doing almost a scatter plot, where we talk about, how many touches compared to having, multiple relationships with the financial organization you work with. So, insurance. So if they own insurance and they own, something else there at the company, they do more than just investments, they're more likely to stay. So we can scatter plot that stuff and see what the relationships are. That's another ideal for this. One of the other things you mentioned was just, being able to see the profitability improvements for the advisors with their actions. So something as simple as a line chart showing, profitability, for the amount of touches that they have. So, if I'm emailing them more, if I'm, sending them more text, if I'm, social media, or if I'm calling them more often, is there a correlation between that and how profitable they are, how less likely they are to change? So again, some very ugly drawing here, just getting our ideas out. There's things that we've seen that I think that we can start pulling together. But I wanted to kind of start with something. So as we move through this process, again, the next thing that I would kind of go into from a conversational level on this is, after we've done some sketches, is take a step back and ask more questions. I'm always going to be asking why as we go through this, because we continue to get deeper until we get to the point that we want to get to. So, but back into our interview. So before we move forward with this, tell me, how are you planning to present this data to your users, and how will they use it? Where will they use it? Is this like in a portal? Is this in a presentation you want to say? What are you planning to do with this?
Yeah, so I have a presentation that I'm going to be showing to our management on just in general how we plan to improve customer retention and where the main issues are. But then ultimately, these should be part of an advisor portal that the various managers will use to just sort of understand who's at risk, where to take action, next steps, just generally how to reduce the risk of churn. So.
Perfect. Yeah, and that makes perfect sense, because I think some of the things that we've done more has been more towards how do I teach people and give people information. It sounds like we're wanting to actually take the next step with this and put this in a portal and saying, how can I drive action through this for my users, for the agents that work for me. So so that being said, I think, and while this is all good, and I think we could probably use some of these if we want to present some of this, from approval time, I think to kind of move forward, we may want to look at this a little bit differently. So another question tell me, so how do we turn the information that we've gathered, and once we really understand the correlations between things, how do we turn that into actions? What are your thoughts on what those actions would be and the context for those actions?
Well, I guess, first of all, our business is done on an individual basis with our clients. So actions for advisors will then be on an individual client basis. And I guess we need to know who to spend our time on, where actions can be effective, and, what actions would make the most impact for, each individual. These actions for us they're very time consuming, and it can be difficult to switch back and forth. So, I guess organization of the actions into more, manageable groupings is what we're looking for.
Okay, perfect. So listen to that again, and I'm not taking notes on my screen, but I did notice mentally three things that you said there. First of all, we need to know who to focus on. So as we're trying to drive action, we need to know who that action needs to be based on. We need to know what action to take with those individuals. So once we know who they are, what do we do to help drive them to lower churn? And then we need to be able to group them effectively. It was something else I noticed in that. Again, I think so. Some of that has to do probably with the way that you manage your agent's tasks within the day. So instead of just having it to where they're all out there just doing all these different activities, we group them in a certain way to make it more manageable for them. So as I'm starting to see this, I'm starting to think in my brain, what you'll see a lot of times in these type of situations is if I want to know who to focus on, what you'll see a lot of times is just a top 10 chart, or whatever makes sense for us as we dig deeper into this. But I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however you want to, and they've got these are the people that I want to be able to concentrate on. This is the person that I need to actually do something for. And you'll notice this is not really a graph, but it is it is very representative of what we need to do. So I think that's good, but I think it goes back to our third option there is how do we group that, because this is just going to kind of be random. We can have 3 charts, but I think when you think of grouping things, you're going to be thinking in terms of like a pie chart, and probably the actions that they would take. So whether it's I need to make sure we have more multiple touches. So I need to spend my time there. I need to spend time working with people to make sure that their portfolio value is what it needs to be, or I need to make sure that we're working with our lending institution to make sure that they're working with these guys to get loans or more insurance, so we can have a tighter loyalty from the client. So where we spend our efforts, we could actually put those kind of sectioned off in a pie chart. But for me, when you start looking at these, I almost want to join these and start looking at these in a little bit different way, maybe a little bit more creative way, non-traditional way. And we've done these before, and they work really well in the right circumstances. But almost a bar chart, and not a bar chart in the way you're used to it, because it's not going to be varied, but in a bar chart that you would kind of break down to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday by a week, and then start breaking down almost your par charts in the bars. So not final, but it's something I kind of think of. That way I can kind of get a better view of my week. I can see how these things are grouped. And then from there, once I'm on Monday and I'm an agent, and I come in and I say, oh, I need to do all these touches, these are groups. So I can kind of have a drill down in here that actually comes to, assuming this is like, let's say this is our multi-touch task. So I need to make sure I'm sending these people another email, another phone call. I can click into that and actually get who my top 10 are there. I can start seeing what the actions are as part of that, and so on. So I can start driving what I want there. And then around that, I almost see this as a dashboard. I know we're pretty much talking about single visualization, but I also want to see, maybe a tree map of, where their assets are split out, how they're split out, or just other information. So if I click on here, I can get more information about that person as I'm going through and I'm doing, a multiple touches with them. So I know what to talk to them about, those type of things. So we're starting to get kind of crystal clear on this. I think this is a good way to start. Again, when we're doing this with a real client, we go back and forth quite a bit to make sure that, that they like what we're saying, they understand what we're saying. For the sake of time, I will not do that. But from here, in real life, what we're going to do is take this and we'll start working to get this. Once we all agree that we're on the right space, right area, we'll start working through this with our design team and start prototyping it. We'll start coming up with the wireframes and things like that. Start pulling this stuff together. We'll start, getting this thing ready to do. And of course, still a lot of back and forth. But again, and that's kind of the process in a nutshell. It's very abbreviated. We typically have a lot more questions back and forth, but I just kind of I wanted to walk through in real life, kind of what our process would look like, just so you can kind of get a feel for what those conversations are. Again, my biggest suggestion to you as you do this is you ask why a lot. Ask a lot of questions, take a lot of notes, and this is all just drafting. I'm not saying it's just for fun, but this is definitely not the final product. You want to get it out, the ideals out there, and then